On First at 9 this Wednesday, the 21st of January 2026. Questionable justice. Tensions in Hulsdorf as protests accuse the Attorney General of bias. Any grievances can be challenged in court, the AG affirms. Disaster preparedness. Opposition calls for Parliamentary Select Committee to investigate Sri Lanka's lack of preparedness for Cyclone Ditwa. Postponed reforms. New 6th grade students begin studies under the old curriculum as schools recommence. Parents stage protests over stalled curriculum revision. University lecturers say the president assured proper implementation from 2027. Inflation. Sri Lanka's national inflation rises to 2.9% in December 2025.
Kalin baby soap rupial 90කට. Kalin baby podi හැමෝටමයි.
This is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening, you're joining First at 9, brought to you by Sri Lanka's most trusted news source, Derana News Channel. I'm Tarindu Mahendra, joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. We begin with your top story this evening. A silent protest was staged this morning in front of the Hulsdorf court complex against alleged bias by Attorney General Derana in the handling of certain legal matters. However, a group of attorneys staged a counter-protest in support of the Attorney General. Addressing the accusations, the Attorney General stated that if he is at fault, any aggrieved party is free to challenge his decisions before the courts. The Bar Association of Sri Lanka meanwhile condemned what it called unfair attacks against the Attorney General, which it said interfere with the independence of the Attorney General's office.
A silent protest was staged this morning in front of the Hulsdorf court complex against the actions of Attorney General President's Counsel Derana. Organised by a group of civil society activists, the demonstration raised concerns over what protesters described as bias in the Attorney General's handling of certain cases.
Both before and after assuming power, the President claimed that the Attorney General's department was concealing certain files and that certain documents were being doctored. The people expected action. Yet, even after a year, these files remain concealed. What is the government doing with a two-thirds majority? How long are we expected to tolerate this, given that actions can be taken against the Attorney General? The Justice Minister should stop striking deals. If the Justice Minister claims that the Attorney General's department is doing a good job, then why was Gotabaya Rajapaksa expelled? This government has clearly rejected a system free of corruption. Keep in mind why you were elected.
Meanwhile, a group of attorneys supporting the Attorney General submitted a memorandum to the Attorney General's department this afternoon, headed Protect the Attorney General's Independence and Condemn Interference in the Judicial Process.
You guys know the people who know the law. I mean, I'm not about the law. Definitely. If I make a mistake, there is a court of appeal there, and there is Supreme Court there. Please go there and challenge me. I mean, and if the court tells me to do something, I'll be more than happy to do it.
Justice Minister Harishana Nanayakkara, a close acquaintance of ours, is not addressing this matter because he shares our stance that the Attorney General and the judiciary should not be interfered with. The Attorney General cannot act in accordance with the wishes of political henchmen. Cases cannot be heard and verdicts cannot be delivered through social media. We are against such actions. Levelling such unfounded allegations against these institutions will only result in the country becoming a failed state.
Against this backdrop, several parties voiced their views on the emerging controversy surrounding the Attorney General.
The executive, legislature and the judiciary are all essential in upholding the democratic principles of separation of powers and checks and balances. We oppose the arbitrary dismissal of the Attorney General or any other government official.
අපි එකපයින්ම විරුද්ධයි. මේ ආණ්ඩුවේ ගෝනාවටද මේ ඇවිල්ලා කවුරු හරි කොම්ප්ලුස්ස නීතිපති දෙපාර්තමේන්තුව ඉස්සරහට මේ කටයුතු කරන්නේ. වෙන කාගේ වුමනටද?
Who else? This is a move by the government.
ආණ්ඩුව ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන ක්‍රියාවලිය.
අද දිනේ මාලිමා ආණ්ඩුවේ හෙන්චායන් පිරිසක්
A group of NPP henchmen are protesting against the Attorney General. No previous leaders ever considered the Attorney General to be under their control. Even leaders branded dictators did not orchestrate protests against or seek the dismissal of the Attorney General. We view this protest as NPP interference in independence of the judiciary. We condemn the protest and stand in support of the Attorney General and the independence of the judiciary.
Commenting on the situation, the Bar Association of Sri Lanka expressed deep concern over recent social media posts targeting the Attorney General, which it said seek to unfairly interfere with the independence of the Attorney General's office. The Bar Association emphasizing that the Attorney General has to decide whether or not to charge or indict the suspect based on the material available and submitted to him by the investigation authority, said the decision may not necessarily reflect the popular view. The association said that while every citizen has a right to critique the decisions of public officials, it must be done in a manner that will not undermine the independence of the Attorney General's office and to the detriment of the rule of law. Accordingly, the Bar Association called on the government and law enforcement agencies to ensure that there is no unwarranted interference with the exercise of the Attorney General's powers.
ඔබේ සම හඳුනාගෙන ඖෂධීය ශාකසාරමේ forever face wash එකක් භාවිතා කරන්න.
Now on the education reform front, the Federation of University Teachers Associations held discussions with President Anura Dissanayake today concerning the education reforms that have sparked controversy. Following the discussion, senior lecturer Charu Datte Langasinghe has stated that the President intends to review the controversial curriculum revision and ensure its proper implementation from 2027.
The second phase of the first school term of 2026 commenced today in government and government-approved private schools. According to the Ministry of Education, the second phase will continue until the 13th February. However, with the Cabinet decision to defer the Grade 6 curriculum revision to next year, 6th grade students commenced academic activities under the previous curriculum. Against this backdrop, a group of parents of Grade 6 students engaged in a silent protest in front of Vijitha Central College in Pulasthigama in Polonnaruwa, calling for the curriculum revision to be implemented this year. Meanwhile, the Satyagraha campaign initiated by the Parents and Teachers Collective of Galle over the same demand continued for the second consecutive day today. In the meantime, the Federation of University Teachers Associations met President Anura Dissanayake at the Presidential Secretariat today for discussions on the controversial education reforms and issues and challenges within the university education system.
The President provided affirmative responses to all issues that were raised. He pledged that the framework involving university lecturers would be established to ensure that the new education reforms are implemented without complications. He further stated that the proposed education reforms will be rolled out in 2027 following the recommended amendments. The President noted that the entire reform process posed risk to the sector. He added that the discussions are ongoing to prevent such issues from arising in future.
In other related developments, Samagi Jana Balawega supporters of Polonnaruwa sought public signatures for a petition calling for the dismissal of Minister of Education, Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya. Meanwhile, education trade unions warned of possible adverse consequences if the government decides to implement the suspended education reforms.
The government has only formulated reforms adequate for 3 months. The teacher's guide are yet to be distributed. Even their printing is yet to be completed. Some of the modules have not even reached certain schools. Mistakes cannot be corrected while addition is being implemented. Errors must be addressed before any implementation takes place. Otherwise, this will create difficulties for the students. If the reforms are applied without addressing deficiencies in school infrastructure, children with access to the required resources will benefit while others will be left behind. Therefore, it is essential that school infrastructure, particularly in rural areas, be improved first. These modules have caused significant inconvenience to the majority of students. Under this system, students can be graded according to the teacher's discretion. How can teachers be allowed to play such a major role in determining the academic outcomes of students?
Chief Opposition Whip Gayantha Karunatilaka presented a proposal to Parliament today calling for the establishment of a parliamentary select committee to conduct a comprehensive study on Sri Lanka's lack of preparedness for Cyclone Detwa. This came during the adjournment debate on the recent disaster.
I present the proposals of the opposition as follows. Accordingly, opposition members propose establishing a parliamentary special committee to investigate and submit a full report on the unpreparedness to face Cyclone Ditwa along with their recommendations.
මෙම පාර්ලිමේන්තුව යෝජනා සම්මත කර සිටි.
ගරු කතානායකතුමනි අපේ ගයන්ත කරුණාතිලක මන්ත්‍රීතුමා අපේ සභානායකතුමා ඉදිරිපත් කර විපක්ෂ සංවිධායකතුමා ඉදිරිපත් කරපු යෝජනාව මම අනුමත.
සාමාන්‍යයෙන් ඩෑම් එක ආපදාවකදී තියෙනවා ප්‍රොටෝකෝල් එක.
There is a protocol for when a dam is damaged. If the catchment area receives 300 millimeters of rain per hour, the dam should be opened to release water, but this was not done. All these reservoirs accumulated water and the water level should have been managed by opening the sluice gates appropriately. Only the excess water should be released. However, due to the sudden release, the water level of the Trincomalee reservoir dropped 1.5 meters below the overflow level. This is a major issue and entirely an administrative failure.
එනිසා සම්පූර්ණයෙන් මේක කළමනාකරණයේ ගැටලුවක්. ජනාධිපතිතුමාට වෙන් වෙච්ච හෙලිකොප්ටර් දෙකක් තියෙනවා. ඒ දෙක
The two helicopters allocated for the president were also used to provide relief during the cyclone. In the past, presidents used these helicopters to observe floods. The disaster took place on November 26th. The president was in parliament on the 27th to discuss it. In the committee chamber, he was waiting for the opposition leader to start the meeting. He personally called you to the meeting and did not begin until you were present. We attempted to coordinate efforts, but there were different issues. The opposition is in crisis now. Let me remind you, there is no future for the opposition if it continues to generate fear based on false claims. In the public perception, the opposition is seen as filled with hatred, hypocrisy and imprudence.
බැලුවම විපක්ෂ භාවිතාව තුළ තියෙනවා කුහකකම පේනවා. ක්‍රෝධය පේනවා. වෛරය පේනවා. මරි මෝඩකම පේනවා. අපේ ඇමතිවරයා දැන් කිව්වා මේ විනාශය සිදු වුණු මොහොතේම.
The minister stated that the president called immediately after the disaster. Yes, he called me from the committee chamber and I was in the parliamentary premises at that moment. You are attempting to portray that we were absent. Now the government is instructing people in camps to return to their houses even if they are in high-risk areas. It is no surprise that the number of camps is being reduced. Are you really granting the 1 million rupee compensation as promised? When there are risk of landslides and rocks on the brink of collapse, you as the minister said it is not a big deal and the risk can be averted by placing some soil on top. Are these the scientific conclusions you are presenting? Regarding helicopters, is it appropriate to use them to go to Batiklo and say that Malwatoya flows into the sea from Batiklo? Is this the right way to use them?
මල්වතුවේ මඩකලපුවෙන් මහමුදට යනවා කියන එක ඒකෙන් ප්‍රයෝජනයක් තියෙනවා. ඒවට හෙලිකොප්ටර් පාවිච්චි කරන එක හරියද?
මට මුලින්ම කියන්න තියෙන්නේ අපේ රට අවදානකමකට සූදානම් වීම.
I am pleased to hear that the opposition, who were previously in power, is now advising us on disaster preparedness. Some have raised concerns about institutional weaknesses. These institutions were weakened during your tenure. They lack proper technology and officials, and as a result, even after 70 years, people still live in risk-prone areas.
අවුරුදු 70ක් ගිහිලා තනාරක්ෂක තැන්වල අනවසර ඉදිකිරීම් වල ජනතාව මේ රටේ ජීවත් වෙනවා. ඒක තමයි අවසාන ප්‍රතිඵලය. ඔබතුමාලට තාම අවුරුදු 76 මතක තියාගෙන ඉන්නේ.
You continue referring to events 76 years ago. We can debate endlessly about the actions of your predecessors. Let us focus on addressing the current, the 77th year. Last week, there were warnings of a possible cyclone. Why did the government not act on official warnings last November? Why were villagers allowed to be destroyed by floods? Claims that relief was provided overnight without sleep are misleading. It was your actions that disrupted your sleep. Regarding the Trincomalee temple issue, the public security minister stated that the statue was removed for protection, yet the police reinstated it the following day. Today the monk is in remand. Who is responsible for reinstating the statue?
rebuildingsrilanka.gov.lk.
The rebuildingsrilanka.gov.lk link directs to the president's office, which mentions a fund named Rebuilding Sri Lanka established there. I confirm that no such fund currently exists. Funds cannot be established arbitrarily. They must comply with the constitution and receive parliament's approval. Additionally, the funds must be audited, but no such auditing process exists because the fund itself is not established, and even if it is, it cannot be done because there is no Auditor General.
අපි අද ගත්තට පස්සේ මම දැක්කා කියනවා දිගටම කියනවා හර්ෂසිල්ල මහත්තයා මොකක්ද?
MP Harshadi Silva says that no formal fund named Rebuilding Sri Lanka exists. That is a half-truth. We have opened an official account in the treasury where the public can send contributions. This is legal. By claiming there is no fund, the opposition is indirectly discouraging the public from contributing. To establish a formal rebuilding fund, an act is required which takes at least 2 months. Meanwhile, the treasury account allows donations legally. Advising the public not to contribute is irresponsible.
දැන් ඒකට පනත වෙනකන් සල්ලි වන්න එපා කියලාද කියන්නේ? ලැජ්ජායි ඔයගොල්ලෝ ගැන.
Sanjeeva Veeravikrama, the Defence Counsel representing the Buddhist monks arrested in connection with the Trincomalee Buddha statue incident, claims that the police are exerting strong pressure to ensure the continued detention of the monks. He made these remarks during a press conference convened by the All Ceylon Buddhist Congress in Colombo earlier today.
4 Buddhist monks along with 6 other suspects were remanded until the 28th January following their arrest over alleged violations of the Coastal Conservation Act and unauthorized enshrinement of a Buddha statue in Trincomalee. The All Ceylon Buddhist Congress addressed the issue at a press briefing in Colombo earlier today.
Are you aware of what they did? Several Buddhist monks had assembled to attend court proceedings. However, the Additional Magistrates Court was not in session that particular day. Subsequently, the police confined all the monks within the court premises. When the matter was later taken up, the magistrate was unaware of how deeply this issue concerned the monks. This clearly demonstrates the underhanded tactics adopted by the police. The magistrate declined to grant bail, citing violations of 2 sections of the Coastal Conservation Act. In response, I propose that the 4 disputed pillars be removed immediately. Despite this, the SSP objected to bail being granted and demanded that the fundamental rights petitions filed against him be withdrawn. In reply, Venerable Kassapatera informed court that SSP Chandrasiri had assaulted him during the incident, resulting in his hospitalization for several days. The Thera further revealed that 2 young monks had also been subjected to assault. Based on these grounds, the Thera refused to withdraw the case. The magistrate then revealed the option of an alternative expedited legal procedure. Accordingly, he directed that the charge sheet be filled immediately, proposing a fine of 5,000 rupees. He stated that the matter could be settled thereafter. However, the statutory fine for the alleged offence ranges from 5,000 to 25,000 rupees. The police then claimed they were unable to file the charge sheet and instead announced their intention to arrest 4 more individuals. It was evident that the objective was to detain the monks in remand custody. It is clear that the police is being moved by an invisible hand. There's a clear effort underway to seize control of this site. It is motivated by a specific political agenda. Initially, all parties attempted to arrive at a mutual understanding. However, the situation shifted once we stated that the structure would be dismantled. It is evident that an unreasonable force is operating behind these actions.
The National Archaeological Heritage Protection Centre also commented on the situation at a press briefing at the Sunetra Mahadevi Piriven Vihara in Papiliana this evening.
Kaduragada Vihara stands as one of the oldest Buddhist heritage sites in the northern region. Although this archaeological site is directly linked to the monastic residence and functions as a Buddhist temple, a fence has now been constructed separating the temple grounds from the archaeological area. This site is rapidly being altered into a space with a pan-religious identity. These developments are sanctioned by the government. We call upon the government not to deny Buddhists their rightful authority to safeguard and preserve this temple.
Welcome back to First at 9. International Monetary Fund Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva has assured Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya of continued support for Sri Lanka. The assurance came during a meeting on the sidelines of the 56th annual meeting of the World Economic Forum in Switzerland. Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya, currently in Davos, Switzerland, attending the 56th World Economic Forum, held a bilateral meeting with Kristalina Georgieva, Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund. During the meeting, Georgieva reaffirmed the IMF's continuous support for Sri Lanka in the recovery process from Cyclone Detwa. On the sidelines of the forum, the Prime Minister also met President of Singapore Tharman Shanmugaratnam and expressed appreciation for Singapore's support to Sri Lanka following Cyclone Detwa, while discussing ways to further strengthen bilateral cooperation. The Prime Minister also met Joseph Sikela, European Commissioner for International Partnerships, where discussions focused on strengthening Sri Lanka-EU cooperation. The Premier also met Masato Kanda, President and Chairperson of the Board of Directors of the Asian Development Bank, focusing on ongoing engagement and future collaboration between Sri Lanka and the ADB. Additionally, the Prime Minister participated in a high-level dialogue on tourism as soft power and diplomatic capital at the Euro News Hub.
Is it still possible to connect people, prevent perhaps conflict through the shared experience of tourism?
Oh, I think it's entirely possible. We've experienced that in Sri Lanka for ourselves. And I think this was best experienced post our cyclone Ditwa, which hit us in November. During that time, we made an appeal to the international community. We spoke to our diplomatic corps and we said, please don't cancel on us. Please keep to your plans and come to Sri Lanka. And people did. People responded, and we were able to record the highest number of arrivals in our history. And I think that sent out such a strong message of solidarity, strong sense of optimism that we were recovering, and the resilience of our people at a time when others are retrenching or being very protectionist or being very exclusivist in who they welcome and who they don't. Sri Lanka is actually one of the countries in Asia where everyone is welcome. Even warring partners can meet in Sri Lanka.
For an investor, for foreign money, cash that is willing or would be happy to put it to work in your country, what can they expect?
Well, we are looking to build that infrastructure that is welcoming towards investors. But I must say that we're looking for investors who are interested in a long-term investment, in an investment that will ensure a resilient economy, a resilient tourism sector, one that's green, one that's climate friendly, and one that's also inclusive.
With that, here's a look at more local news across the island in brief.
The Government Radiological Technologists Association initiated a 24-hour token strike across all hospitals in Sri Lanka from 8 a.m. this morning. President of the association, Chanaka Dharmavikrama, attributed the trade union action to the failure of the Ministry of Health to conduct an impartial investigation into the conduct of the acting deputy director of the National Institute for Nephrology, Dialysis and Transplantation in Maligavatta. Addressing concerns raised, Acting Director Dr. Charles Nugavela clarified that since radiologists attached to the Institute of Nephrology had withdrawn from standby duty since the 9th February 2024, patients were referred to a private hospital for x-rays, with qualified radiologists being brought in to obtain x-rays of critically ill patients at no cost to the hospital. He added that it was unfair to resort to union action instead of requesting the Ministry of Health to investigate the move. In a similar development, the strike initiated by all doctors at government hospitals in the Eastern Province, demanding the dismissal of the medical superintendent of the Akkarai-Pattu Base Hospital, continued today. The superintendent is said to be facing a number of allegations including corruption. The health minister claims that reports from 2 tests have been submitted to the health secretary for approval, while one investigation is still ongoing. The ministry will take action only if any wrongdoing is confirmed, as decisions cannot be made during active investigations. Meanwhile, the Deputy Minister of Agriculture Namal Karunaratne revealed in Parliament that over 7,500 million rupees have been paid as compensation to 96,847 paddy farmers affected by Cyclone Ditwa. However, farmers in Malabe and the Hiyattakandiya say many fields remain damaged, prompting protests and calls for urgent government intervention. In other related news, the final rites of the late former MP Nandana Gunatilaka was held this afternoon at the Mahavadur Public Cemetery.
Welcome back to First at 9. In economic developments, Sri Lanka's labour force participation rate increased to 49.9% during the third quarter of 2025, up from 46.9% in the corresponding period of 2024. The estimated employed population increased to 8.1 million compared to 7.8 million in the corresponding period of 2024. Employment remains concentrated in the service sector, with the share increasing from 48.3% in 2024 to 49.8% in 2025, followed by the industry and agriculture sectors. Meanwhile, the unemployment rate stood at 4.3% in the third quarter of 2025, a slight increase from 4.2% in the corresponding period of 2024. Female unemployment at 6.2% remains higher than male unemployment, which stood at 3.2%. Youth unemployment stood at 19.2% in 2025, an increase from 2024. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka's national inflation continued to edge up in December 2025. The overall rate of inflation, as measured by the National Consumer Price Index, increased to 2.9% in December 2025 compared to 2.4% in November. Food inflation increased to 4.4% in December from 3.6% in November, while the year-on-year inflation of the non-food group increased to 1.6% from 1.5%. The NCPI for all items for the month of December was recorded at 210.5, an increase of 3.3 index points. The Colombo Bourse maintained positive momentum today as a result of price gains in counters such as Haley's, Colombo Dockyard and Sampath Bank. The benchmark ASPI gained 0.77% to close at 23,806.32, while the more liquid S&P Sri Lanka 20 increased by 1.14% to end the day at 6,619.32. Market turnover was 9.81 billion rupees. Foreign participation in market activity remained at subdued levels, with foreigners closing as net sellers, offloading shares worth 51 million rupees.
In December 2025, inflation remained subdued. NCPI-based headline inflation moderated to 0.8% year-on-year, while CCPI-based headline inflation stood at 1.6%, reflecting contained price pressures. Core inflation also remained low, with NCPI core inflation at 0.7% and CCPI core inflation unchanged at 1.6%, indicating limited underlying demand-driven inflationary pressures across the economy. Monetary conditions remained accommodative during the week. The average weighted prime lending rate declined by 21 basis points to 8.98%, while the average weighted call money rate eased slightly to 7.94% as at 16 January 2026.
That's all for tonight from First at 9. Thank you for joining. Have a great night.